Accountability is something that we all must inevitably face at one point during our lives. Whether we hurt the feelings of a loved one or just straight up clog the toilet to unimaginable degrees, we simply just have to take a step back sometimes and say, sorry, my bad, I screwed up. And as simple as that might sound to a normal person watching this right now, unfortunately, as you might have already concluded from being on the internet, accountability is starting to become a rarity these days. But if we had some sort of a global competition on seeing who can avoid saying sorry the most consistently, then it would be content creators, especially ones who have a lot of followers and have built such an ego that they have become delusional. And unfortunately, we see many such cases more specifically in the VTubing community. Because today, we're talking about the VTuber by the name of ChaChaChilla, someone who tried to cancel another VTuber and her entire agency. And when she got called out, right, when she was proven wrong with receipts and proof, instead of saying sorry and taking a step back, she instead claimed that she was going to the hospital and she got community noted. And as ridiculous as this sounds, I wish that's where it ended, because people would uncover that this was her third rebrand from 2 past controversial lives, and after putting the pieces together would start to tell us about the other controversy she was involved in before even becoming ChaChaChilla. I mean, this whole thing was such a disaster that it ended up trending on Twitter. Guys, as this was happening, I could not believe my eyes. Not only was this crash out incredibly bad, but it involved a person that literally had zero self-awareness. I can't see this happening otherwise. The humiliation and embarrassment would be too much to handle for a normal person. So look, by now you know me. Once I see a catastrophe like this unfold before my eyes, I think to myself, man, I have to talk to you guys about this. So without further ado, let's do this. Alright, so this whole incident actually took place in Minecraft. You see, there were 2 VTubers that created a server. The first one was called Lucia, and the second one was called Arissa. The survival multiplayer server they would create, otherwise known as SMP, would be called Invasion Parasite. But it would have a twist. Other than just being an SMP, it was also an RP server, where people roleplayed different characters and made up different stories and scenarios, all meant to be in good fun. VTubers of very varying sizes and very varying audiences decided to join that server to have a good time together and get to meet new people. Some of these VTubers happened to be from the Socks agency, otherwise known as SVA, one of the few VTuber agencies that is actually still standing and works pretty damn well with its talents. The server took around 3 months to set up and would actually involve the work of multiple people. It would have multiple factions competing against one another while being invaded by mobs, and the event in its entirety would last 3 days. After the last day of the server, Lucia would tweet, "Invasion Parasite was a huge undertaking that I didn't fully grasp the intensity of." She'd say that it all started as a silly little idea between her and Arissa, all while thanking the people who helped her set it up, as well as talk about some of the issues that popped up that they were able to get through anyway. She mentioned how some people produced music, art, and stories in the server that she was blown away by and that she was very grateful. Overall, a pretty healthy conclusion, right? Well, this was tweeted on November 17th, 2025. On the same day, an hour earlier before Lucia made her tweet, ChaChaChilla would herself make a tweet saying, "I think it's weird that people will act like they're better than you and literally call you inferior to your face and then act like you're the problem." Now, of course, initially her community was concerned, like, what do you mean? Who called you inferior? Who could do that? Half an hour later, she would make yet another tweet, this time longer and specifying exactly what she meant, saying, "I wanted to take a moment to apologize for how I reacted on the last day of the SMP. I got genuinely frustrated and let that frustration turn into anger, and that wasn't fair to anyone. I'm sorry for the way I spoke. That said, I want to be honest about where that frustration came from, because I think it matters. From the start of the SMP, we agreed to hold off on griefing until day 3 so everyone could settle in, build, and actually enjoy the opening experience. When griefing started on days 1 and 2, it didn't just break the rules, it broke the spirit of what we were trying to create together. On top of that, hearing things like my team being inferior or that we deserved to die got under my skin more than I expected. I didn't handle that well, and I should have stepped back instead of blowing up. I'm not here to hold grudges though, I want to move forward and be better and not let my anger get the best of me no matter the circumstance." Alright, well, you read this and you think, okay, well maybe there was some miscommunication in the server, but overall, it's fine. She took a step back, she was like, I'm fine with it, not holding grudges, let's move on. Except that's not where things ended, right? She would then reply to this tweet and say, "And I also want to be honest about something personal. Being called inferior hit me harder than I let on because I'm disabled. I deal with those kinds of assumptions in real life more often than people realize, and hearing it in a space that's supposed to be fun and welcoming cut a lot deeper. I don't expect everyone to tiptoe around me, but I do expect basic respect. For me, and for anyone else who might be carrying something you can't see, comments like that don't just stay in the game, they stick with you. And that's part of why I reacted the way I did. Alright, maybe that was a bit of a stretch. I mean, this is a roleplay server, right? This is just the word inferior here. But it's okay, we can just call that miscommunication, guys. It happens, you know, it's not a big deal. If ChaChaChilla had just shut up and not done anything else, things would have been completely okay. Except she didn't, right? Of course she didn't. And the next day, she would start off an incident so massive that it would start trending on Twitter. On November 18th, 2025, ChaChaChilla would make this tweet, saying, I tried to talk to Flork about one of his talents having a habit of calling people inferior and how that can seem to disabled people. However, he blocked me and said not to bring up my personal issues with his talents. I believe calling somebody inferior is demeaning, as it's historically used context. Ad-Free VT called us that. If you support Sock's Vtuber agency, aka SVA, this is what you're supporting. She would then link a clip of 3 seconds. Watch.
I literally almost died in the first 2 minutes.
Alright, so there's a lot happening in this clip, but near the end, right, what she's trying to highlight is Ad-Free VT saying, you're inferior, we're just better. Just as a reminder, right, we're in Minecraft, they're role-playing, and it does involve player versus player fighting. Alright, that's just all I'll say before we continue, alright? Now, she would refer to someone called Flork, and that would actually be the CEO of Sock's agency, of SVA. So she was out here trying to cancel one of his talents for calling her inferior while calling him out directly, saying that he wasn't doing anything about this. Now look, I don't know what she was expecting, maybe seeing some people rally behind her, maybe she felt that she was truly fighting for a greater cause here, but almost immediately after posting this, the entire VTubing community just went up against her because God, this was such a ridiculous thing to cry about. Malfina, who is part of SVA, would say, a habit? A 3-second clip is a habit where the person isn't seen? The word was spoken in a roleplay based around factions fighting a war against one another. Wilders were also making comments against other teams. That's how it works. What's unprofessional is approaching Flork as you did, purely trying to get ad-free into some sort of trouble, then being unable to provide evidence. What's unprofessional is stretching his "this is your fight" to him, allegedly approving the word inferior as an attack against disabled people. What's unprofessional is shouting about high raids and subs around those who are role-playing respectfully in open areas. What's unprofessional is starting to instigate other players even after a mod told you to stop, then playing victim as was seen on your stream. She would then specify that this had nothing to do with disabilities and would end this by saying, this all started because Addy unfriended you. Everyone has the choice to do so. This is a sad reaction. So this of course adds a lot of context that was missing in that initial callout post. As I mentioned earlier, this server had multiple factions, 3 to be exact. They were all competing against one another for the end goal of the entire story involving the server. So I'm sure many of you watching might have played sports or played just online games in general, and understand that shit-talking your opponent is a very normal thing to do, especially saying something like inferior. This wasn't a slur or anything, right? It was actually extremely harmless. Pretty much everyone from SVA stood up for ad-free, saying, hey, this is a roleplay server, dumbass. And you even had disabled people, the group of people that she claimed to be speaking for, come out against her, saying, yo, you're a dumbass. Inferior is not a slur, come on. And then you'd see another member from SVA by the name of Yami add more context about their past experiences with ChaChaChilla, quote tweeting her callout post and saying, oh hey, it's the person who kept following me around all of Offkai after I told them to stop and I had to warn security over her. Offkai, of course, is a yearly VTuber convention. She continues, the person who was overstepping my boundaries and touching my arm in comfort over and over when I told them not to touch me and spoke at me like I was less than them, saying I was so brave for going to Offkai as a trans person rather than talking to me like a normal person. You don't get to play the victim when you've hurt and disrespected so many people, and many know about your past life and the terrible things you've done there too. All I can do is wish you find the help you need, step away from the internet, find professional help, and breathe. Maybe the world will be brighter for you one day where you don't find a need to validate your existence by trying to bring down others. So yeah, this wasn't just any random callout post. This person apparently had a history of being very weird and even had a past life. She used to be another VTuber, but we'll get into that later. For now though, the CEO himself of SVA would quote tweet her callout post and tell us about his side of the story. saying, yes, I did snap at you in DMs because you were told not to contact me anymore prior to this. Lucia's team investigated the first piece of evidence you showed them regarding ad-free, and it was not even them speaking, video included. Their team there gave you the statement on what was happening. It was roleplay in a Minecraft faction roleplay, and I will wholeheartedly back my talent that they did no wrong, especially in a 4-second out of context clip you originally showed. He'd link a 14-second video, and this was actually what ChaCha had sent Lucia's team, right, the person behind the server, to prove that ad-free was somehow an ableist, someone who discriminates against disabled people. Watch for yourself.
Treating guys.
Yeah. They're wild.
Guys, they're like,
gotta give them a
yeah,
pass.
what's happening
Their
with that?
brains are a little smaller.
Dude, that's gonna, oh my god,
I
her.
was never a wilder. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's true. I never.
Right, so in this clip, you can see a bunch of VTubers saying that the opposite faction, the Wilders, have smaller brains. I guess ChaCha was trying to say that this was ableist, like they were making fun of disabled people. Like, what? Disabled people have smaller brains or something? Yet another stretch. Even better, Flork would be claiming in his post that the clip that ChaCha had sent the mod team didn't even have ad-free speaking in it to begin with. I mean, by this point, the circus was in full swing. This post almost has 1 million views, by the way. This was so ridiculous, it blew so much out of proportion. He would then reply to his post and say, you also stated here other people do it, so why focus on me/SVA? Was it before I told you to not message me any longer as of early October? And he'd link to images. Here we can see ChaCha saying, really? Because as I see it, nothing has been taken care of. You guys have known about the inferior things. Lots of people have been calling us it. In the other image, we can see Flork saying, hi ChaCha, I will admit I'm a little uncomfortable with your messages right now. I have been extremely busy because of corpo work and my other work. Though earlier in the year I had more time so I was able to message a bit more freely, I have not had that free time lately. Me not consistently DMing you is not a personal thing, however because of this I'm not sure if I'm comfortable to keep up communication. Best of luck, ChaCha. This happened on the 6th of October 2025, and after this he would block her. It seemed like that really bothered her, and she's held a grudge against him ever since. He would then continue the thread, saying, listen, we knew you were going to fucking do this because you did this shit before to other people. I knew you were going to drop this late. Maybe you thought I'd be asleep so you could get an edge on me? I specifically stayed up because we knew you were going to do this. I don't know why the focus was on me so hard, especially if your problem was ad-free. I don't want anything to do with you. He would then add more context as to why he knew that she stayed up late, showing DMs from this July 2025. Here we can see ChaChaChilla saying, I'm a night owl, and Flork remembered that detail. The last thing he'd say in this thread is, honestly, do you not think I stick up for anyone in my agency? Come on. Before he even went into my DMs to try to get me to punish her like a school kid, I knew what was going on. So look, overall, a very strongly worded statement by Flork. I mean, after this, if you had any sort of self-awareness, any sort of shame or dignity, you would probably apologize, take a step back, maybe deactivate your account, I don't know. But just to show you how much self-awareness ChaChaChilla truly lacks, she actually would reply to this post saying, actually, that's not what you said, linking DMs. Here we can see the screenshot from the 6th of October in which Flork says, hey, I'm not comfortable really keeping up communication. And we can see the blocked message from ChaChaChilla in which she says, I'm sorry, it's just that this has happened with multiple people and I guess it's really gotten into my head. I won't bring this up again. Flork then says, best of luck, ChaCha. And then she says, thank you. Sorry again for letting this get into my head so much. Thank you for understanding. 24 days later, she would say, hey, thank you again for understanding. Wanted to give you some time, but the standees did arrive a bit ago and wanted to thank you for them. I love them so much. You do not have to reply to this, just wanted to express my thanks. So look, I don't know what the whole point of this was. Flork would just reply with, that's pretty clearly don't message me anymore, right? And that was the whole point. That's why he linked these DMs in the first place. It doesn't matter what she replied with. The whole point was that on the 6th of October 2025, Flork said, I'm not comfortable keeping up communication. Bye, right? Like, thank you. This was the nicest way he could say it. ChaChaChilla would then reply again saying, that's not what you said? You said you're not sure if you want to keep communication. Be clear, communicate like an adult, especially when you're communicating with somebody who's told you they're autistic in the past. At this point, she's like, apologize or draw 25 disability cards and use one of them. Like, what the hell is going on? The top reply on her reply would out-ratio her by 20 times and would say, medically or self-diagnosed. Not to mention that there are so many autistic people in her replies expressing how angry they are that someone is using their condition as an excuse to not take accountability. Like, look, I've seen my fair share of absolute train wrecks of VTubers, but no one has ever taken it this far of replying to something so clear-cut and still trying to paint themselves as a victim. And you know what the worst part is, or I guess the best part, since you're probably entertained? We're not even halfway through. It gets so much worse. The next tweet during this entire shitstorm would be from Nikita, someone who actually helped Lucia and Orisa make the server and was a staff member. He'd say, "I am the staff member who personally handled ChaCha's ticket regarding this matter. I feel it is important to clarify the timeline and the facts of our investigation for the public record." Initial contact. This issue began when ChaCha posted a call-out in the public Wilders faction Discord channel tagging ad-free. I removed that post to de-escalate public tension and immediately reached out to ChaCha privately to explain that public callouts can create a hostile environment. Protocol. I directed her to open an official ticket so the admin team could review the issue properly and fairly. We went back to the ticket she opened before and continued the conversation there. The investigation. Upon reviewing the original evidence provided in the ticket prior to her public post, we found no evidence of malicious behavior or targeted harassment toward ChaCha. Misidentification. Crucially, the individual speaking in the evidence provided for review is not ad-free. So let's just examine this for a second, right? A staff member is telling us right now that the person who was saying inferior to begin with wasn't even ad-free. This whole incident happened on the basis of wrong delusional information. Absolutely incredible. Anyway, the next section would be called Event Context. This was a 3-day Minecraft faction PvP event featuring 3 distinct factions. Wilders, military, and scientists. Intense, in-character banter and trash talk between factions are common expectations of the roleplay genre rather than malicious attacks. All 3 factions engaged in this behavior as part of the competitive atmosphere throughout the 3 days. And if someone ever took it too far and turned it into hate speech or targeting specific individuals, staff would reprimand said individual and remove them from the server. Roleplay context. So here he'll be talking about the clip specifically. The specific comments in the clip regarding small brains were made by the player in the video, who, like ad-free, was playing a Wilder Gone scientist. The player involved confirmed this intent, stating, "I quite literally was making fun of myself because I started as a Wilder, so I was the small brain in the room." Admission of widespread usage. In private DMs prior to the ticket investigation, ChaCha stated, "Lots of people have been calling us inferior." This admission confirmed she was aware the term was being used broadly by the opposing faction against the Wilders group as a whole. Terminology. ChaCha alleged that ad-free used the word inferior. We found no evidence of ad-free using this term towards her. However, regarding the term itself, inferior is a standard adjective meaning lower in rank, status, or quality. In the context of a competitive PvP faction war, this is standard terminology used to denote an opposing team's skill or ranking. In the ticket, ChaCha explicitly rejected the validity of roleplay context entirely, asking, "Are you saying calling people inferior is okay if it's roleplay?" After I asked, "May I ask, was it in reference of faction RP?" Resolution. I informed ChaCha that while we take reports seriously, we could not find a violation of server rules based on the evidence provided. Transparency. I explicitly stated that we would not stop her from going public if she felt she needed to, as we believe in open communication. Current conduct. While we respect the right to voice concerns, we definitively do not support the targeted behavior currently being exhibited. Inconclusive and manipulated footage. The public accusation relies on a highly zoomed-in, chaotic 3-second snippet. In this clip, multiple conversations overlap and the visual is obscured. Ad-free's character is not visible in the scene because we cannot see who is speaking and the audio is chaotic. It is factually impossible to verify if ad-free is the speaker. Attributing a specific voice to her in this chaos is a massive stretch and does not constitute valid evidence. Audio context. Even if one strains to isolate the faint background voice in this chaotic clip, the phrase audible is "they are inferior, we are just better." This phrasing explicitly links the term inferior to a competitive comparison of skill and faction strength, in parentheses, better. Uttering this sentiment privately among teammates is standard morale building, not a targeted slur. However, again, we cannot verify it was ad-free who said this. Retroactive evidence hunting. In her messages to Flork, ChaCha admitted, "I'm going to hunt down the clips." This statement, made after the accusation was leveled, suggests the conclusion, in parentheses, that ad-free was guilty, was formed before any evidence was actually found. This explains why the eventual proof was a misidentified clip of a different person. Unprofessional escalation. ChaCha claims she contacted the SVA agency owner Flork and he did nothing. This is a misrepresentation. The screenshot of that conversation shows Flork enforcing a standard professional boundary, refusing to allow personal conflict, where one party has blocked the other, to be escalated into management harassment. Flork directed her to respect the block, that matter is settled, rather than validating her attempt to bypass it. And finally, conclusion. We stand definitively by our investigation. It is unacceptable that a situation defined by manipulated evidence and misidentification has escalated to the point where independent event staff must intervene to correct the public record. We expect all participants to adhere to professional standards, and we will not validate the use of misinformation to target community members or external agency leadership. Nikita would then link a screenshot in which he was talking to ChaCha saying, "Hi ChaCha, we are taking your report very seriously and are reviewing the matter." He would then state everything that was already stated in his Twitter post. Like, for example, the fact that this was completely fine in a roleplay setting. There was nothing weird that was said here. 7 hours later, ChaChaChilla would reply to him, saying, "I've decided I'm going public with this. And in order to avoid the VTuber who streamed it getting involved, I've zoomed in to not show them." So look, overall, this was a very well-crafted post. I mean, he really talked about everything here, giving us context in every way imaginable, and indirectly managed to make ChaChaChilla look like an even bigger clown than she already was. Not only was she linking a very hyper-focused 3-second clip, but there was no way to verify that it was even ad-free who said it. Most likely, that wasn't even the case. This was a clear vendetta that she had because she had her feelings hurt that the CEO of SVA had blocked her and that ad-free had unfriended her. It was just pathetic. So of course, we can't have proper VTuber drama without the good old community notes, and her initial post did get that treatment. It would say, "This was a roleplay server where people were acting. The people have no idea what this person's disabilities were. And their words were not a direct attack to this individual. It was directed at the group in the roleplay, only in the roleplay." The community would then link 3 different Wikipedia links, with the first one being roleplay, the second one being acting, and the third one being common sense. Whoever wrote this was an absolute savage, dude. Holy shit. Now, of course, when you're a complete delusional idiot, it's really not enough when you can't take accountability after making false accusations. No, the cherry on top is being a hypocrite. And that's exactly what would happen when the VTuber Zion would show us a clip of that roleplay server in which they took the axe of ChaCha and ChaCha called her a bitch. Watch.
Your abs back.
Please, I'm alive.
Why?
Cause I'm alive, bitch.
So ChaCha's out here saying, "Oh my god, name calling, you're calling me inferior, ableist, blah blah blah." Bro, whoa, whoa. You're out here using the B word, woman. As everything was burning and this was literally trending on Twitter, Adfree would make this tweet saying, "Oh hey, good morning," in which you'd see this gif that sums things up very perfectly. You know, walking into a burning apartment, dude. But you see, the thing with ChaChaChilla is that she had so much more to offer to the world. That's right, even after everything that's happened so far, she didn't think it would be a good idea to get rid of her phone or something. No, instead she'd get the incredible idea of making things 100 times worse. By not shutting up, and going as far as starting a fundraiser to sue people defaming her name. I wish I was joking. After ChaChaChilla's tweet would get community noted, she would swiftly delete it. But that didn't stop the whole incident from trending on Twitter and making people aware of who ChaChaChilla truly was. This is when people would start to uncover her past. Apollo Mythos would make this tweet saying, "Let me give you some more context. ChaChaChilla, aka Bunny Alisu. I was nice, respectful, and tried to be a friend at the time. I wanted you to get help. You harassed me and my friends and so many others for years. You have doxed IRL faces / names, bullied, spread lies, and got blacklisted from Mythos for a good reason." Mythos being the agency that she's a part of. "I gave them a 10+ page document. When we didn't give you what you wanted, you did revenge porn." Yes, that's the P word, adult videos. "Every single time I had something awesome happen to me, you got butthurt with my success early on. You shared it everywhere and people saw that side of me. You took my power, and just 2 days before TwitchCon, where I wanted to see people for the first time, my first event, I had to listen to so many people saying they were on my side and that they saw it. I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want that. But you didn't stop there. You kept harassing me for months on end because I wasn't flinching in public. You had to make videos, accounts, and spreading it all over Mythos. I didn't feel safe anymore. I was so overwhelmed I couldn't even stream properly because of you. I lost a lot of things and it harmed me." So obviously that's a crazy accusation, right? It seemed like ChaChaChilla wasn't just someone who was desperate for clout, going after an agency and its CEO. This was someone who was genuinely dangerous, who had hurt people in the past and tried to rebrand to get away from that without, of course, taking any accountability. The replies on this post would be nothing but supportive to Apollo, with quite a few friends confirming, "Yes, you went through so much, we're here for you, and now you can finally let it out comfortably because we're here to back you up." Apollo's post would make ChaChaChilla finally make some sort of statement after deleting her initial callout. And this is what she had to say. She'd start off with, "I feel so empty. I lost everything, and I really have nobody to blame but myself. I will say I genuinely thought using inferior was bad, but when everybody disagrees with you, it's time to take a step back and reevaluate. I'm not perfect and I make mistakes. I will say I saw Apollo's post and I never doxed anybody nor did revenge porn. That's going too far. Please provide evidence. I'm taking a step back from the internet. I feel like I just need to delve deeper into therapy about my impulsiveness and my sadness that turns into anger. I made a very impulsive mistake last night, so this is the last time I'll have access to my phone for a while. I don't know when or if I'll be back. I'm sorry that I caused drama and sorry to those I hurt." Now, one thing I want to point out in this amazingly well-crafted statement is that she had never apologized to either Adfree or Flork, nor did she apologize to the server owners or the staff that was very professional with her, by the way. She just says, hey, I have nobody to blame but myself. I made a mistake, but she never really took accountability to the people that she was trying to destroy. She was literally trying to cancel people. Someone would point this out in the replies, saying you never apologized to Adfree or Flork. You're trying to dodge responsibility for what you did to Apollo and to Yami. This isn't nearly enough and you're just doing this for damage control. She'd reply with, I will say that I did say Yami was brave for showing her face without a mask, but not for being trans. I can't take responsibility for things I didn't do. As for the lack of apology towards Adfree and Flork, they've told me they want nothing to do with me and I'm respecting that. I swear, man, if lack of self-awareness was a person, I think it would personify itself. It would show up and manifest as ChaChaChilla. I need to point out the fact that this post almost has 700,000 views, but man, I mean, you can tell a lot from the engagement, right? Almost 100 comments, all completely pooping on her entire existence. And even though that was the case, she would still make an effort to reply to Apollo's post, linking her statement there, saying, posting this here too. Of course, literally just one like on this whole thing. I think she liked it herself or something. And as you might expect, there's not a single positive reply here. Now look, this had already blown way beyond proportion, right? And even though this was a very unlikable, vile person who just can't say sorry no matter what and has past lives in which they actually hurt other people, I think it's safe to say that things would have died down if, you know, ChaChaChilla actually stepped back and didn't touch her phone anymore. But did that actually happen? As you might expect, hell no. Because not even 20 minutes later, she would tweet out, I'll be heading off to the hospital soon and won't have access to my phone. People, of course, didn't believe her. It's been 20 minutes since you posted that image, bro. Are you just farming for pity? She would then reply to her post saying, since people don't believe me, while linking an image of presumably her in a hospital room while censoring her face. People still didn't believe her, so she replied even further, saying also, I wasn't hospitalized in under 22 minutes, I had been there since November 17th. I was waiting to be transferred to a psych ward, however, the psych ward was full, so I was discharged instead. Linking an image that showed her hospital history, saying that on November 17th, 2025, she had gone to the emergency department. So what she didn't realize by doing this is that she exposed the fact that she had made her initial call-out post while being in the hospital. Which meant that her tweet saying, I'm headed to the hospital, was a lie. She was already there. She was only fishing for attention. Her initial call-out post was made on November 18th, 2025. She made this while waiting to go to the psych ward. So I'm sure it comes as no surprise that her hospital post got community noted. But before we get into that, we'd find out through another VTuber's quote tweet that ChaChaChilla didn't just have one past life, she had two. They'd say, you don't know when to quit, do you? 3 years ago, before she was ChaChaChilla, before she was Bunny Ilisu, she was Nia Charisse. She tried to cancel me on my birthday subathon when I was being vulnerable to her privately, and she twisted my insecurities to try and scare me out of the VTubing space. She also tried to drive a wedge between me and one of my best friends while screwing them out of hundreds of dollars. Seeing you do all this and worse to so many other people makes me fucking sick. 3 years later and you haven't changed a bit, fuck off and never come back. It seemed like Chacha had a track record, and every time she would get caught, she would just rebrand into a new VTuber. As time went on, more and more people caught on to the idea that this was another identity of the same person that screwed them over in the past. This content creator would claim that ChaChaChilla was the same girl who crashed a dinner party that a friend of theirs hosted back in TwitchCon Vegas, never paid a part of her bill, and irresponsibly drank with strangers during the event. People were very uncomfortable with the fact that she was mixing her medication with alcohol. The list, of course, here would go on, with her being accused of spreading multiple false rumors about the content creator and their friends in question, and sending lewd photos of herself with zero consent to this content creator that she since then deleted. even claiming that ChaChaChilla was also a doxer, something that many others in the community have already claimed. This wasn't just a serial offender at this point, this was like an on-the-run fugitive in the Vtuber community. What the hell is this? But the thing is, this wasn't just about her past controversies, people were doubting the picture that she linked. Even though her face is censored, you can see on the edge here that the hair is pink, and it's fairly long. The community note on her post about the hospital would actually talk about this, saying the picture OP provided in the subtweet is not them. It is highly likely they are lying for pity. They are a known liar to gain social equity, linking a tweet. That tweet would say, this picture is not her. She doesn't have pink dyed hair. Her hair is natural brown / dark blonde mix. Seeing what she looked like in Zentrea's off-guy stream where she heavily self-promoted herself to the point that both Zen and our favorite monarch got uncomfortable, this is a fake pic. So apparently that's also bonus info. She was heavily self-promoting in someone else's stream during the convention. Wonderful. They would then reply to their own post saying, for anyone doubting my words, this is her a month ago, still short blonde brownish hair, taken from her own media tab. Now get off my bum just because I'm speaking facts. So yeah, as we can see, this is short hair and there's not a single shade of pink. Now look, ChaCha apparently is a cosplayer. She might have used a wig at Offkai, and some people were also alleging that this image was actually taken from a thread from somewhere else, but it actually wasn't, as much as it's believable seeing who we're dealing with here. Someone actually just took ChaCha's picture and posted it in this thread, which was about VTubers. Additionally, this image was being posted saying that it's the original one without the emoji, but it's actually AI, and you can see this on the monitor in the back. It even got community noted. The reason why I'm pointing this out is because we don't need fake proof to prove that this is a very weird story, because all we have to do is look at her Discord server when this was all going down. Someone would compile images of what was going on in her Discord after she had posted the hospital pic, and it shows us a clear understanding of how she was trying her best to prove that she was actually in the room with the help of her community. The first thing she'd do is post this, saying, also yes, I have pink hair and the brown hair is a wig, confirming that yes, she was cosplaying at Offkai, she currently has pink hair. Her own Discord was kind of doubting her, saying, maybe you have a friend who took this picture, to which ChaCha would reply with, so I have a pink-haired friend I got to send me hospital pics and a selfie right now? That's kind of dumb. Regardless though, her Discord wasn't really on her side. They were pushing her to get a piece of paper and write the name and the date so that people understand that this is actually her. She would then go ahead and post it, replying to the initial post of her proving she has pink hair. The image would say ChaCha, but the date would be very weird. It would say 1/1/9. That's what it looked like. Her Discord would point this out. What is this, 119? To which ChaCha would say, no, it's meant to say 11/19. I know my handwriting is bad, but damn. Someone would then say, what's with the date and different hair shade? To which she would say, the hair is the same, it's my same hair. A couple of people would believe this, but many others wouldn't. Some of the people in the Discord would ask her to take another picture that's clearer, that has a better date, and she would say, because you're doubting me when I'm showing proof and making me take more and more photos, it feels like you're trolling me. She'd then finally give in and say, fine, I'll take another photo with the same shirt that she had worn in the hospital. And then as someone was giving her advice as to how she could stand up to make the lighting look better and match the picture in the hospital, she would say, I don't like standing a lot. I stood for one photo quickly and started feeling dizzy. Someone would say, come on now. To which she would say, you do realize I have a heart condition that makes me faint when I stand for long periods? I can show you the tilt table test. To which one of the people trying to help her would say, okay, I give up, you are a liar. She would then post the image of that test, right? Even though a lot of people were already turning on her by this point. And after many minutes of arguing about how she gets dizzy when she's standing up and how she can't do it, someone would just say, hey, can you just do it sitting down? Can you just shut up and do it sitting down? She'd say, okay, fine. And then she'd finally take another picture with her sitting down. As far as I'm aware though, she wouldn't post this one on Twitter. Someone would mention that she's missing the paper that says the date and her name, to which she would say, what the fuck, you didn't say that, like you didn't specify for me to take it with it. Her Discord would then start infighting, right? Some people were on ChaCha's side, some people weren't, and they would just start like going at each other's throats, and she would just stop participating in the conversation. So yeah, here's the image of her sitting down, because again, if she stands up, she'll just faint, guys. Here's the hospital one. Is it the same shade? Up to you to decide. But one thing is for certain, this image is really weird. I don't know why you would write the date like this. Look, I can maybe say that this is a 19, right? This could be excused as a 1, but then you have 3 different lines. What do they signify? That doesn't look like an 11 to me. It looks like 119. Not a single reply here was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Everyone was like, dude, what did you even write? Like what? This is January 2009? Like what kind of date is this? It only made her look way worse. And then just as you thought that things couldn't get way crazier than this, she would make a tweet because of course she lacks self-awareness entirely. She'd say, if anybody wants to help with lawyer fees, and would link her stream elements in order to get donations. Yes, that's the tweet. This came out of nowhere. What lawyer fees? Who are you suing? What are you talking about? It would only be the next day in which she would finally specify what she's raising lawyer funds for, saying, for those that wanted me to specify, I plan on taking Apollo to court and suing her for slander and defamation. She has stated many false things about me with no evidence to back these claims up. Apollo would then quote tweet that and say, I hope you do, that would be so funny. Now, I don't know what could have possibly changed ChaChaChilla's mind here, but shortly afterwards, she would delete that tweet. She would also delete the tweet in which she was asking for lawyer fees, right? And the funny thing here is that if she actually were to sue, which come on, everyone knew that would never happen, the burden of proof would actually fall upon her. She would have to prove that she's innocent, right? And so far, she's been doing a terrible job at this. Man, it's insane what delusion and narcissism can do. In any case, Flork would end this by saying, okay, folks, while I deeply appreciate the support, the matter is done and over with now. There's no need to continue with it. Let's not tell someone to KYS, let's lower the temperature. What's done is done and the matter is over. I wish it didn't get to that point, but it is what it is. I wouldn't wish anyone getting to a mental breaking point. Cha-Cha, I don't know what drove you to all this. Get the help you need and move on. You can't keep doing this in public, getting backlash when people defend themselves and then get to this point. He would then go ahead and say that he does forgive her, but hopes that she evaluates if this stuff is right for her. He hopes that she can get help. Free, the one who was also blamed by Cha-Cha, would say, I have a lot of incredibly sweet DMs. Thank you for checking up on me. I promise normally I'm a silly little bug and I'll get back to that soon. More than anything, I think we should celebrate the incredible job Lucia and the team did. You guys navigated unknown terrain and made sure that everyone was having a blast, sometimes literally. Cheers to the next one. We live, we learn, we entertain. She would then express how lucky she is to have her agency, SVA, and that she couldn't imagine going through this as an independent VTuber. So yeah, this whole thing was just wild, a complete roller coaster of emotions. And just like any big problem that blows out of proportion in many of my videos or just on Twitter in general, it could have ended way earlier if the person involved had just apologized and taken a step back. ChaChaChilla isn't some random VTuber. This is someone with past history who has hurt people deeply. The good news though is that their new attempt to reinvent themselves has completely failed, and she'll probably make another account in the coming year or something, I don't know. If there's one silver lining here is that it did raise awareness on Sock's agency, on the fact that its own CEO will defend his talents like no one else. That's a really cool thing to have. At the same time, it also did raise more awareness on the efforts of Lucia and Orisa when it came to making that server. Hopefully next time, it'll be even bigger and better and won't have any problematic people involved. And finally, when it comes to ChaChaChilla, the last tweet you can see on her feed was her saying that she has pink hair and that the brown hair is a wig. However, she did make another tweet along the lines of, I've seen many people say that I should get a real job, but I'm disabled, blah, 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 really pushing the whole disabled narrative even further. But she deleted that tweet, and I had no time to take a screenshot of it. However, we can still see her talking about this in the replies. Someone said, okay, you can't do a physical job, then get a desk job, to which she would say, are you going to pay for my college degree? She hasn't learned a single thing, she hasn't apologized to a single person, and overall, she's absolutely hopeless. It's incredible what some people will do instead of just saying sorry. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this roller coaster train wreck nuclear bomb until the end. I really appreciate it. I also wanted to quickly mention that GamerSubs has a new drop right now and it looks really cool. So if you're interested, make sure to use the code Mujin for 10% off your total order. I'll see you in the next video whenever that is, and please take care until then. Love you. Mwah!